I also I have a poem.
Okay,
So
Vladimir, do you wanna? So, all
yeah,
right,
we
that's
start
great.
from.
If people are listening, yeah, we're gonna have a good conversation here this morning. Well, it's afternoon in Russia and morning in the United States.
It's
So
almost
you
evening in
you want to
Russia.
start with your poem, Vladimir?
Yeah, I was mastering this week another poem from Devil's Dictionary.
All right, let's do
It's
it.
called Commonwealth.
Okay.
So this Commonwealth's capital's corridors view, so thronged with a hungry and indolent crew of clerks, pages, porters, and all attaches whom rascals appoint in the populous space, that cat cannot slip through the thicket of shins, nor hear its own shriek for the voice of their chins. On clerks and on pages and porters and all, misfortune attend and disaster befall. May life be to them a succession of hurts. May fleas by the bushel inhabit their shirts. May aches and diseases encamp their borns, their lungs full of tuberculosis, their bladders of stones. May microbes, bacilli, their tissue infest, and tapeworms securely their bowels digest. May corncobs be snared without hope in their hair, and frequent impalement their pleasure impair. Disturbed be their dreams by the awful discourse of audible sofas, sepulchral horrors, by chairs acrobatic and wavering floors, by mattress that kicks and the pillow that snores. Sons of cupidity cradled in sin, your criminal ranks may the death angel thin, avenging the friend whom I couldn't work in.
All right.
It's like so terrible. I mean, I can sense that I read poetry so terrible in English and I can't do anything to make it better. And that bothers me so much. I mean, in in Russian, I practiced a lot, like maybe 5, 6 years. In Russian, I can do it really well. But in English, somehow it's like I can't catch the rhythm. I can't catch the right way of, the melody of language.
I see.
So
So
hard.
so you mean like it's terrible, not the poem itself, but the way you're sort of like reading the poem or
Yeah,
interpreting the poem.
yeah. It's like I
Um,
can like I can hear it, and I'm not satisfied with how I say it. But even though I try to find some methods how to improve my reading, I read like about how people read poetry, how to do it better. But still, it seems like nothing works. So
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
I've read hundreds of poems. I mean, like that, even in public, and still like there is almost no improvement.
yeah. I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
But
I'm not an expert, so I don't really know much about reading poetry. I would say, yeah, just like keep practicing, and maybe you can practice with other people that read poems, that like other poets. I think
well,
they,
I listen lots of poetry by on YouTube and
yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah, so I guess it's just a matter of practice, and the more you talk to people and the more you practice, I think. I mean, it's also difficult. Like, I mean, poetry is very difficult in any language, and if it's in a language that is not yours or that is not your native language, I mean, it's really tricky. I mean, it's
Yeah, but it's also power. I mean, in Russian, it also took like it took me maybe 3, 4 years to learn to read poetry well. I mean, and I was practicing like almost daily, writing my
yeah.
own poems and repeating some other poems as well. Anyway, let's discuss obedience. Like
Okay. All right. So, what do you want to talk about obedience?
well, in the first place, why do we obey? Like, what makes us,
Well,
obey others, people's commands,
okay.
rules, logic, whatever. What do you think? Like, what how it works on a
Well,
social level?
Well, I think obedience is very much related to discipline, right? Those are things that go together,
Mm-hmm.
Obedience is basically to follow someone's command, which is essentially to follow someone's discipline. And I mean, we cannot really have society without discipline to some extent. So discipline is absolutely, it's one of the it's one of the essential ingredients of civilization, right? It's discipline. You cannot have civilization without discipline. And then obedience can be either you can obey because you think you should obey, or you can be forced to obey otherwise. So there are different kinds of obedience. I mean, this is kind of just like my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I agree that when you should obey, it seems right. So, for example, when you are a kid, right, and your parent tells you that you need to do this or that, it's basically like most of the time it's okay because you don't know what to do and you try to figure out, and probably adults know better. But when you are forced to obey, especially like in when you are in some sorts of organizations and people just tell you you must do this, and you know that it's better to do something else, like in
Hmm.
school for example, that's such a such a terrible place. I mean,
such a such a terrible place.
and not for everybody, but for me it was such a terrible place. Like most of the teachers were, they didn't care about their subjects, about what they try to teach. And when they tell you that you need to read this textbook, you need to understand this, that, and they basically don't understand this by themselves. They can't really,
Right.
like, their thoughts somewhere else. And it was so hard for me. I mean, I guess I have some kind of character, these big five in psychology, like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So I test on agreeableness. Like, I made some tests, and the four characteristics were very high, like 80%,
Mhm.
and agreeableness just 15 or 25.
So you're
So it
not
was.
someone that is very agreeable. Um, yeah, I mean, I had the same thing in school. Like, I didn't have discipline problems, but I have trouble like just following commands. Like, and in terms of like, I do not, I didn't like people telling me how to think. Like
Mhm.
that didn't really work for me so well. So I think I'm guessing like that was partially why you didn't like it as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but I can stand anything. Like when it's right to obey, I still feel that when somebody else gives orders, I still feel there's something wrong. I shouldn't follow, and I usually take some con- controversial course.
yeah, I'm the same way. I think that's people. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I mean, like free thinkers or yeah, I don't think free thinkers usually like taking orders that much or obeying. It's not something that is very much in our nature, I don't think.
Yeah, but
Um, yeah,
from 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 a different angle, I would say that when I read philosophers and some profound thinkers, I found myself like listening to what they were talking about and try. And usually, it's like there's like if it's some like Aristotle or Plato or whoever lived like 2,000 years ago,
yeah,
uh, I feel that I want to do what this man advised me to do because it's like some profound wisdom. I know it's like just a feeling. So you
yeah.
have feeling that this is probably the right thing to at least to give a try. Whereas when somebody who your peer tells you like you
Yeah,
must do this, you must do that, it's like what the hell? I know better what I need to
and
do.
that's almost not obedience, right? Because you were making the decision at the end of the day. Like Vladimir is making the decision that Vladimir wants to do that. Like Plato is not telling you, you should do this, or Aristotle is not telling you should do this, or
Well,
you know
to some degree, they tell you like what you should do and
well, to
how.
some degree. I think
Yeah.
that's the key. To some degree. It's very different for you to do something that someone is telling you to do and something that they're kind of like suggesting, and then you make the decision. I think that works in different ways, and I know because it's like that with me. Like I really hate just obeying. Like when give someone gives me like a command. I mean, especially these days that I'm an adult, and I'm a little bit cranky. I I don't like it. Like I don't respond that well to commands. But if someone suggests something, I mean, that's a different thing, that I might take the suggestion. um I think it's a personality trait. But as far as like society in general, I think discipline is very important. It's very important. I think that's something that is lacking in modern society to some extent. I think we've lost a little bit of the our reverence for discipline, which is I think a cornerstone of a good society, of a good civilization, of a good society, a good community. Needs to be discipline, I think, and that requires obedience. But it needs to be like the right kind of obedience as well. And obedience shouldn't be overbearing, right? So like in terms of like, especially like in terms of learning
Mhm.
or thinking, I think it's th- in terms of the actual intellectual act, right? I think obedience shouldn't really be that required. What is required is like things like, for example, if you're in a school, you are required to say, write this essay, or be quiet and listen to the teacher. I mean, those are things that are required and that should be required. But to think in this way and not the other way, I mean, that shouldn't be required. You understand what I mean? Like, it's like the as far as like free thinking, I think free thinking should be encouraged.
Yeah, but in school, it's the whole process of studying. So they have information, they put this information in your head, and you have to regurgitate this information back when you pass the
Yeah.
exam. So
Yeah, I think
it's
that's a stupid method of teaching, right? I mean, I don't think that is still like the primary method of teaching and learning in schools. But that, I mean, that's for the most part, I think that's a pretty stupid method.
yeah, but who is going to teach in school free thinking? Like this, if you are a kid and you are like taught to think free, you basically will not learn anything. You wouldn't learn what you don't like to learn. You wouldn't learn math. You wouldn't learn biology, physics, chemistry, whatever.
Well, yeah,
So
there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance, right? But I don't think that just learning how to memorize something and reproduce it, I don't think that's terribly useful. I don't think you're actually learning all that much. If the objective is to learn, then that is
I
not
think
really.
learning is more about like behavior change. So you basically get information, and this information transforms your behavior. You start applying it, using it in your life, understanding. Whereas when you just get information, remember it, and then repeat it, and then forget it, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, but in this case, obedience, like mostly, like you must learn. You must learn, this formula, or you must learn this law. This is important for you know for you to function in a society later when you need to perform some task at your job or wherever.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have discipline is like it's like what I said. Discipline is fundamental for civilization, for society. We need to have discipline. But that's
I think on a personal level, like
that's kind of
it's
like the general rule, right? But then you have to go into the specifics and see each situation. Like what I was saying, like in terms of thinking, I don't think I think it's important for people to be free to think what they want and how they want, right? So uh it's a balance of things. When you're too rigid in terms of thinking, then that's not very productive. um for example, I mean, for example, like history, I really love history, but I didn't really like history at school. I mean, that's an example of something of what I'm kind of trying to tell you.
yeah, I remember from last video when you discussed with Crack this like memorizing dates and just
Yeah,
you
it's
know
true. That's an example of
yeah.
like the way history is taught in schools. To me, is not. And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, it's hard. Like I've worked as a teacher, so I know it's like all the everything that involves teaching and learning. I mean, it's a difficult job, really. But just giving people like a number of like sentences and essentially expecting them to memorize things and to reproduce them, I think that's never really going to be that effective in terms of actually learning things, you know. The way we learn things is really by, like, for example, history is so interesting that really and I understand that not everybody may be as drawn to history as I am, but I mean, as a general rule, it's a pretty fun thing to learn, you know. So if you give just people like the tools to for example to learn the things that they're interested in history, I think, you know, most people would be pretty interested in it. And it's very different from you know, just giving people like this set uh, this determine, you know, all these dates, essentially giving them all these dates, expecting them to memorize it. You know, it should be a lot more flexible than that. um and
Yeah,
there, yeah, go ahead.
I began to appreciate history more when I started studying second language. So when I could read like history, some historical events from a different perspective, and compare what I learned in school or what I learned later. It's like it opens like so many different points when you may just look, oh, this, like, this is how I've been taught what this event meant, but now from this, you know, from different language, from different country or different, you know, culture, it just is a completely different event, and then you start questioning like what's really true. What's
Yeah. And like, I mean, languages is an even better example. I mean, I'm generally speaking, I'm pretty good with languages, or you know, decent with languages. Like, I'm not bad with languages for sure, but I was pretty bad with languages in school. um because languages, I mean, English I was good in, but I mean, I didn't really learn it in school, so it doesn't really count. But French and German, because I had French, English, French, and German were my languages in school, from the time I started to graduation in high school. And I was really bad in French and German. I still don't speak anything of German, like a word of German to this day, because the way they taught it was, and I speak French now because I spent a couple of years in France to learn it, but mostly. But like, the way they teach languages in school is really not that helpful, you know. And that kind of like illustrates, and I know like learning languages in particular is kind of like different from learning other things, but it's the general principles apply, you know. Like, you need some sort of flexibility, right? It's just memorizing something and reproducing it doesn't really lead to much of a learning, you know, process. You know, it's more, you need to be interested, you need to apply it, like you're saying before, you need to apply it in your life, you know. You need, like, passive learning is not that effective, you know. It needs to be passive and active.
you kind of learn by using language, like when you study like any foreign language, you basically apply it in your life by using it in your life,
Hmm.
not just not just remembering and keeping in mind. Since if you remember, you don't use it, but as soon as you start using it, like naming things, trying to
Yeah.
understand some, ask some questions, trying to gain new knowledge, learn something in a foreign language. I like this idea that you can't learn unless you just seek information on your own. So whenever, like, if there's a teacher and she or he gives you certain instructions that you have to learn this or that, it doesn't work as well as when you just learn by scheduling the time and basically working on your own, trying to gain knowledge related to the subject which you study. So in this case, it works always. I mean, if you are able to organize like this, like one hour a day and study anything, you may study, you may progress. If you just continue doing that, you may progress way faster than when you do it with a teacher. Since it's like you gain knowledge which you need. You don't learn something that you don't need. It's like all information which you get, it's like something that you are interested in. Whereas when there is a teacher and he or she gives you information, it's basically 80% of it or 70% of it is like unnecessary. It's something that
True.
somebody
And it's
somebody
also
else.
and it's also not a very efficient, you know. that 70 or 80% is also, it's not even that it's not necessary, it's not also efficient. Because if you think about it, like when you're in school, I mean, I don't know if it was like this for you, but it was for me for sure. Like I was, when the teacher was just speaking, um and I didn't do it on purpose, it was just, it was just my thing, like, I would fall asleep, not fall
Yeah,
asleep,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
not necessarily fall asleep because I would get in trouble, but because I couldn't like actually fall asleep. But I was almost falling asleep, because you go to school like really early, and if the teacher starts speaking about math or French, French grammar or something like that at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it was hard sometimes to stay awake, and I, like I said, I don't think in my school, it was a while ago, but yeah, I would get in trouble for actually sleeping in class. So that couldn't, I wasn't actually sleeping, but in my mind, I wasn't very active. I wasn't really listening to them. Like, you know you need to be active in that process to some extent for it to be efficient. If not, I mean, at the very best, you're going to catch some things, but you're not really listening to everything, you're not really learning everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, I may relate to that. I also, like, in college, I was playing computer video games at night, and then went to to school at morning, and I was really sleeping, like seriously, like
Yeah.
falling asleep, and teacher just, came to me like, "Wake up,
Oh boy.
we're 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 studying," and then I was even, get out of, like, not get, like, what's the word, not expelled, but the teacher told me, go out and
Yeah,
go go go
go,
go 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 home and sleep at home, don't
yeah,
sleep
get
at
out. Yeah, get out of the
at
classroom. Yeah.
my class. Yeah, that was
And so,
terrible.
yeah, I mean,
But it wasn't because of, like, the interest in subject, but
right.
because I just,
Yeah.
it cost 30 30 rubles to play the whole night at the computer club, and an hour cost 10 rubles. So if you just buy an hour, it just 10 rubles. But if the whole night, 8 hours.
What did you
Well,
play? You would stay like all night there, like playing?
yeah, it's like in
Really? Wow.
2002, 2003, I was playing, Warcraft, Starcraft,
Wow.
video games, and yeah, it basically, like, 2 times a week I went to play for the whole night. I
Wow.
was so passionate about video games. It was terrible. Basically ruined my health, but at that time I didn't care. I was
Well,
so,
there are some kids in Korea that die, in other places I'm sure, but in Korea they have
yeah,
they've
In
had
Korea,
like so many cases of like kids that doing basically that and just dying.
StarCraft is like national sport in
Yeah.
Korea, and when I was playing, it was like back then in 2003. They It's like they play StarCraft as French play football, or
Yeah, it's like
English.
football.
It's like, and it was so hard to. I played in Battle.net, like, with Koreans on the internet, and it was almost like all Koreans were so good at StarCraft. It was like the worst Korean beat champions of, I actually played. I went to some not even local, but national championships in
Wow.
Moscow,
Wow.
and
You must have
played
been
with,
really good, man.
yeah, and played with really with like one man. He, like, whom I lost was, like, I got eighth, no, from fourth to eighth uh place, not place. Anyway, so I just got almost to the final, and this man whom I lost, he later went to Korea to play, like, in an international championship,
Yeah.
and he even, like, could manage, like, win, but Koreans were just, it's like impossible to play against them. It's like to play against artificial intelligence in chess. So,
Yeah.
something like that.
It's just you're not gonna win. Yeah. But yeah, so what are some of your other thoughts about obedience? So why did
Well,
you get it?
I also,
Why were you interested in it in the first place?
I'm interested basically also in obedience when you have kind of, let's suppose that you have certain desires and they contradict each other, and what kind of desire should you obey? Like, it seems that you always obey to certain, maybe it's not desire, some impulses, something that you want to do, and not quite often there's contradictions. So, for example, I may like decide to have a conversation, or I may decide to read a book, or I may decide to watch some movie or to go for a walk. And quite often there's like I may identify certain, not a voice, but some kind of voices. So in your head, you have mind and you have emotions, and quite often I see that I can't confront these desires. I can't really like. I don't want to do that, but I feel that I can't. How to say it? I can't really disobey certain desires. So especially when I talk about video games, I had this passion when I was young, and still I can't get rid of it completely. So even now, sometimes once a month or a few times a year, I find myself like having a strong desire to play, and I can't do anything unless I play. So, and I know that on a rational level, I understand that it's something totally unnecessary. I can't just avoid that.
Hmm.
But still, there's an urge, and I can't. It's like it looks as I have to obey. There's no way.
When you play video games, do you still play the competitive games?
Yeah, I basically play like last time I was playing chess for a couple of weeks,
Yeah,
quite recently,
yeah, but
and
that's not really a video game, is it?
it's almost the same
But
thing.
it's,
You see,
yeah,
you
if you
see it on
play
the
it
computer.
online, if you play it
Yeah,
online, it's
as I said, I'm passionate about languages, and whenever I spent a week playing like 5-10 hours a day, I later think, man, I could just sit and rewrite some book
Mhm.
for this time. Like seriously,
Yeah.
50 hours, you may rewrite any book, and I really like that. I like to take some like I'm doing it on on not on schedule, but I'm trying to rewrite just to dedicate at least half an hour a day to write, just to take some books and rewrite them. And I find lots of it's not something that I really enjoyed doing, but after that, like when I've done the exercise, I feel really amazing. Wow, that was so productive. I could sit and I could study language, I could write. It's so amazing.
I just finished reading this book, the Republic of Pirates.
Uh-huh.
It's a book about it's pirate history. This is a fascinating book.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time when we had the conversation, not
Yeah,
with you, but in group conversation.
yeah, I just finished it today. It's a history book. It's the history of the golden age of piracy.
It's a big book, like 400 pages, 500 pages.
It's about 400 pages. Yeah.
Have you
No,
finished
no, no.
Waldo?
It's like 300 actually. It's a little bit. It's more than 300 and less than 400 essentially. Yeah.
Have you finished Walden?
Um, I mostly finished it. I wasn't like super compelled with Walden, but to be honest, I don't know if I finished it completely or not. I think I did, but it's not. It's a kind of a disjointed book, because you have
Mhm.
like different separate chapters talking about different things. I don't think I finished the whole thing. I think I need to go back and maybe there's a couple of chapters left.
How many books do you read at once? Like,
No, I mean, I've been trying to read more, but I don't usually read a lot. So that's something that I would like to change, but I read only one book at one time. Uh,
mhm.
right now I was kind of reading both Pirates book at the same time because I bought two because I wanted to read pirate history. This
Uh-huh.
is a general history of the pirates. This is a terrible. I bought this on Amazon. This is a terrible edition of this
Yeah,
book,
yeah.
which I got really upset. But I might just throw this away and
Why
get.
are you so interested in pirates? Like, what makes you so
Um, but so the reason
like
it's
history?
it's it's
The way.
basically history. Like
Uh,
I like history, and sometimes I get really interested with it, like a particular history of something. Um, and it was actually there's a documentary on Netflix. It's called The Lost Pirate Kingdom, which is like if you have the opportunity. I mean, you'll get a pretty good idea of the history of the golden age of piracy just with that documentary. It's 6 hours, it's 6 episodes, 1 hour each, or a little bit less than that. And I had never been exposed. Like, I've always been interested in pirates, but I've never really delved into pirate history. Like, for
Uh-huh.
me, pirates were more like fiction. uh,
Yeah, it's like this with Johnny Depp
exactly, yeah.
movies. Yeah, I
So
like them. And
most people know pirates in our
yeah,
generation, in our kind of like time, because of the Pirates of the Caribbean, which
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack, yeah, Captain Jack Sparrow is the most famous pirate of our time, But Captain Jack Sparrow is not a real thing. He didn't actually live. But there are pirates that did live, and it's very fascinating. It's a lot more interesting than the Pirates of the Caribbean, to be honest,
Mhm.
the movies. I mean, it's fascinating.
Once
But
again, what's the name of documentary?
it's called The Lost Pirate Kingdom,
Uh-huh.
and
Probably.
it's pretty good. I mean, if you're interested in that, it's not for everybody, I guess. Like, you need to be somewhat interested in history and
Well, I may check just the first episode to watch it and see how it's.
yeah, if you
I
like
actually have
it.
lots of time. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, and I mean, I find these things interesting, but so the obedience, that, like, going back to your thing, because I don't want to
Mhm.
hijack the conversation and talk about pirates, because you're trying to talk about something serious.
No,
But
we may discuss whatever is here. It's like it's not necessary to talk only about obedience.
yeah, no, but I think the sort of like, I thought that was an interesting idea, this idea of, I like how you take one thing and, like, you apply it in a number of different contexts, like this idea of obedience to yourself, almost, right? That's a very interesting idea. How And it's very difficult to obey to yourself, in the sense of, it's very difficult to avoid all these things that you don't really want, that are bad for you. But it's very difficult, like, avoiding playing video games, instead of doing other things, like having that sort of like self obedience, or a different way of saying it, I guess, would be to control your own desires, your own passions. That
Yeah,
is,
but what exactly? Yeah, it's like for me, it's never exhausting question. Like what exactly controls these desires? So for me, it's like language. The clearest way how I can define just language. So you improve your language, and by language you also mean just like mind, reason, so whatever, like logic, and then you use it to to influence your behavior in a way which you want, like which you like. For video games, it's obviously it may be fun to play like an hour a day, maybe half an hour a day, but if you can control it, if you see that it ruins your health, that it makes you like stupid or too much engaged in these video games, which are actually something completely like, it's not just useless, but it's kind of, it's not here, it's nowhere. Like where like I used to play this Warcraft game, and I played something like 2,000 games in a year, like short games, like 30 minutes, and it's the same game over and over. So basically you build a, you build an army, go fight, 30 minutes, the game has ended, you start a new one, the same game, you play another, and you just get better and better, and there are thousands of people who play the game, and that's why you want to play better and better and better. But basically it's like it's me, it's like something completely uh like kind of augmented reality, and
yeah,
you
it's
get
kind of
good.
a waste of time, in a way,
Yeah,
right?
you get good at it, but it doesn't
It
matter
doesn't matter. Yeah,
outside of this limited small place. And when I started like growing older, when I realized like it's still, I need to, like, I have some talents, I may dedicate myself to something else, I started fighting with this desire, and it
yeah,
took many years just to get to to reach the balance when I could like dedicate half of my time to something else and half of my time to video games. And eventually I overcame this to like to maybe to 90%. So now it's like 10% of my life it's video games, and 90% of my life languages, philosophy, studying, linguistic, writing, reading, whatever.
Yeah.
And but it's still there. And what controls it? That's like for me, it's very interesting question. Like language, how you develop your language to the point when it may like when you like not well, you're almost like a robot. So whatever you decide to do, you just do it. And if you have desires or emotions which hold you back, you basically learn to control these emotions and put them in in the activity. So you make like kind of you conquer these emotions and make them obey like your highest commands or whatever, your logic, your reason.
Yeah, it's like yeah, you what you're talking about is really self-discipline, right? Like being able to have this discipline in your life that you're able to yeah, to control yourself, to control your desires and your passions, and basically do things that are good for you, not the things that you just want to do because you're immediately drawn to them and they're not
Yeah, and also
necessarily
it's like
good for
it's not
you.
just you want to do, right? So there are always like there are lots of advertisements, there are lots of if you go on the internet, lots of people persuade you to do certain things which you basically don't want to do, but
Yeah.
still you may be weak and you may just do something that you don't need to do just because somebody else again tells you to do that you obey somebody else's commands,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I don't know if you saw in the group, in the philosophy group that we have um on Facebook. Someone posted, I think it was Jesse or something like that. One of the Jessies, I don't know. I actually I saw it very quickly, but I thought the idea was interesting. I just glanced at it,
Mhm.
and then I talked a little bit about it with my wife, with Beth, and because she was the one that told me about it. But it was basically something about how you have two big so there are two big predictions in science fiction, right, of like what would become of the future: 1984 and Brave New World. I don't know if you
Mhm.
saw that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
yeah,
I've
but
heard something, yeah.
yeah, so and I need to
But
go back and actually read the whole thing, but it's interesting because
I actually have. Wait a second.
oh, there you go. Yeah, no, that's a great book, and actually Beth was telling me about how she found it interesting as well. But it's true that in our world today, we have a little bit of 1984, and we have a little bit of a Brave New World, or a Brave New World, I think it's called. Um,
And a little bit of Republic of Plato,
yeah.
and Thomas More Utopia.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of everything, but there's a little bit of 1984 in the sense that we are being controlled or watched all the time now. It's not like we have the big brother like in the book, fortunately, because
Yeah, and we'll
that
like
would
it,
be
right?
terrible.
So the whole idea is that we like it. We like we not we don't need the police who will put us to like to TV set. We basically go and watch TV set because we like to watch TV set.
Well, but
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, well, almost. But 1984, it's about imposing something, right? And we can't really prevent. It's almost like the way we're being watched all the time now. We can prevent it to some extent, but not completely. But a Brave New World, which is kind of like we can talk about that more at length in a different opportunity. Because now I actually want to bring out more the Brave New World, because a Brave New World is the opposite of that. A Brave New World, they are controlling people by giving them not through fear and not by watching them, but basically just by making them consumed by their passions and desires, right? To an extent that they can't really do anything else because they're completely controlled by these desires, by these passions, right? And in the book, I mean, it's not the case today because the book is basically, you're giving a pill that makes you happy, and they're always like participating in a bunch of orgies and stuff like that. That reality is not really like that today, but it is like it's similar in the sense that we have lots of entertainment, right? We have so much entertainment. We have Netflix and all the other streaming services now. Some of them are like fantastic. and they're going to start to expand all over the world. But here now in the United States, there's like 10 streaming services, just like Netflix, and they're all good. Like you could basically spend your life with, you know, three or four of them. You could spend your life. I don't know if you have Netflix there, if you use that, you could probably just spend your life just watching stuff. You know, just watching movies, TV shows, you know, documentaries, cartoons, anime. You know, like you could
You
spend
know,
your life just doing
I
that.
I think you can't do it forever. It eventually will make you depressed and
Yeah, no, I'm saying,
yeah.
but I'm saying like it's unlimited content, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
unlimited.
I agree, but you know, it's still you may do it for like 5 years,
Yeah,
but
no,
then
but
you'll be bored. It's
no,
like
yet I'm not saying, I'm certainly not saying you should. I'm just saying
yeah,
that you could.
yeah.
Like there, my point is that there's so much content, and then on top of that, you have video games these days. Like, I mean, it's overwhelming. You know, like you can like, you know, spend all your time playing video games, and
And bro, they're improving video games.
yeah, I
Like you know,
know,
video
I
games
know.
which I played when I was 10 or 20 years. Like if you compare them to those which we
No, I
have
know.
now,
I know
like
video games are fantastic and there are so many of them and there's all types of the video games. Like I'm not a big fan of the video games that you play like StarCraft, Warcraft. I like them, but it's not my really my thing. But you know, for me it's more like RPGs and stuff like that
mhm.
and and adventure games. But
You know,
there's so many of those as well. There's so
I
many
had
of those that you can just like spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just playing them. So
I had this theory that eventually like they'll create some super cool video game which everybody will play and just nobody is going to live in reality since everybody will
well, we're almost at that point.
play the game since it's way more fascinating, way more
We're almost at that
interesting.
point, you know. We're almost at that point. And then what else? We have music, we have podcasts, we have YouTube, we have it's almost an unlimited list of things that you can do that oh, and social media is a big thing, you know, like most people everything on your phone, right? People like spend, you know, almost unlimited. It's not unlimited because there's limited time in the day, but they spend a lot of time on the phone doing whatever, you know, whatever it is.
10,
So
10 hours for a US adult,
well, there
like
you go. It's crazy. So
an
I
hour.
mean, the only thing that really people don't like, the only time that people don't spend like doing those things for a lot of people is really when they're at work and they're forced to do something else. um, so more than ever now we live in a world that controlling yourself is super important. And I don't know, like it's very difficult, it's very difficult for like for example, personally I certainly like I have a long way to go until I think you've mastered it more than I have, you know, like you seem to have kind of like mastered it, and you can at this point you can spend your time doing the things that are meaningful to you. But for me, I mean, it's still difficult. And
Yeah, I find thinking really like liberating in terms of you know you if you just do it for half an hour, it's like thinking, I mean, meditation, or you know, when you decide to think and not to do anything else, not watch
yeah,
your phone, not watch anything, just sit and think. And basically, like you think with your pen. You don't think just in your mind. You take a pen, you take a paper, you write down some thoughts, and it's like it creates this self-discipline, basically strengthen your language. And at some moment, you find it like I guess at first, at least it was my experience. At first, it was terrible. Like few years, it was just you know just doing some crap, writing some stupid stuff, just describing what happened during the day, what I like watched or what I read or what I was thinking, with whom I was talking about what. But gradually, you just make it better and better. When you reach a certain level, it gets so fascinating that you basically don't like not always, but mostly you don't want to watch something. You want to create something, so you just sit and write, and you then you read it, and wow, that's cool. Next time I can do it better. Next time I can do it better. And thinking it's like just a frame of time. So you just take an hour or 30 minutes, or you may start from 20 minutes a day. And these 20 minutes is like you may think about it as your government. So this is your uh, uh, I don't know how to translate it from like original. The whole idea is that this is your government, and for these 20 minutes, you'll decide what are you going to do like at the end of the day, like during this day, or you just control your activity by like by these 20 minutes, and you think, what are you doing? Really, you try to write it down, try to understand what you've done, how like sometimes you'll decide to do something and then you'll see that you can't do that, you do something else, and next day you, oh wow, that was cool, like I wrote to do this, and instead of that I did something else, I played
Oh
video
wait,
games,
so
let's say.
the 20 minutes is like you're trying to decide what you're doing with your life, right?
Yeah, it's your,
Like during
again,
the day.
it's like you develop your government, basically
Like
your
basically you're having a cabinet meeting with yourself,
right,
right?
right,
Like
right,
what
exactly.
are we
So
gonna do with our with this person, right? Like this is
exactly,
what
and
we're
then, and
gonna
then
do.
and you do it like every day, and then you check how your thinking corresponds to your actions, and quite often you'll see inconsistency, especially if you just begin to do that, and then you, wow, why is that, like let's try to get rid of inconsistency, and then it's like the whole process starts, and you, wow, it's like this self-control thing, it goes so deep. I mean, when you understand how it works, it's just mind-boggling. Like you make control basically like in terms of desires, and like I had when I was thinking in Russian, when I didn't learn English yet, I was using, I called it programming, self-programming. So the whole idea, you start almost like this. So you start a day by dedicating 20 minutes to figure out how you, like, what would you do for the rest of the day? And you basically make a schedule for each hour. So, for example, now it's 7 o'clock. At from 7 to 9, I will do this. From 9 to 10, I'll do this, and so on at the end of the day. And then next day you just check it, see what you performed, what you didn't perform, and then you like write a new schedule for the next day. And it basically involves everything: your work, your free time. uh, and I used to do that almost to the degree when I became like a robot. So every day it's like these 20 minutes, I decide what to do, I do exactly what I decided to do. Next day the same, next day the same. And like there are some commitments for like 10 days, 50 days, 100 days. And it works so bloody well. But then, no, that's when I shifted to English, there were some changes in my. No, I think I reached some cognitive limits. So whenever I,
What do you mean by that?
well, I start like I write programs like
Mhm.
self programming, and then like I can do that for a week, 2 weeks, but then I start feeling kind of noise. So there's noise in my head.
There's
At
noise in your head.
Yeah, and I need to stop doing it. As soon as I stop doing it, it's like there it all goes back to normal.
Okay.
But it's like, I basically what I'm doing is like studying. So most of the time, like 80% of my day is just getting new information, processing this information, writing, watching lectures, reading books, etc. And it's like I think I just get too much information, I can't process it. But when I
Okay.
do
Yeah.
this self-discipline stuff, it's basically I organize my day around studying and physical exercises.
Okay.
So and later, like there's noise, I have to stop, I have to relax, I have to play video games or watch some stupid TV show. And then after a few days, I'm ready to go ahead. I read some programs. But with English, see, with Russian, I could do that for half a year. I mean, there was periods, and again, it's like they all are recorded in my journal since I was writing every day. I mean, I had like thousands of notes, daily notes, like
Wow.
scheduling my day, scheduling my week, scheduling my month, and then checking out everything. So, and again, it's like in English, I can do that for 3-4 weeks, no more. Like to do self-programming like in a perfect sense. I mean, today I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do this, and I do all of that. But in Russian, I could do that for half a year, and it's basically okay. Like I could plan forward for half a year, and these plans is like let's read like 10 volumes of Kant or Hegel or Schopenhauer, and
Yeah.
you just plan it. You dedicate 2 hours a day, or 5 hours a day, or 3 hours a day, and then you go for half a year doing that, and it feels so amazing. It's like I can't describe. But in English, again, it's like there. I think it's still because I can't, like I did it so the whole thing with shifting to English, it was like, I'm not going to think in Russian. I'm going to choose a new language. I'm going to create the whole world out of this new language. No matter like my age, doesn't matter that I don't know the language. I know I can do that. I'll try. And then it's like very hard pressure. So I know it's like some people who study English, they can't speak for few hours. Like those whom I communicate to, some of them can't speak for few hours since it makes them tired. In my case, like I must not just speak for a few hours, I'm thinking for 16 hours for few 3 4 5 weeks
Oh, I get it. Yeah,
before I get
yeah.
exhausted.
It's very intensive.
Yeah, and this obedience against like self-control, English, but for me it was kind of the way to improve like Russian. I wasn't satisfied with Russian language. I was still playing a lot video games. Still, it's like even for half a year you go well, but after that you have a like some kind of lapse, and I could play like for a month uninterruptedly. I mean, 16 hours every day for the whole month, just sitting at the computer, not going anywhere.
Just playing that game.
Yeah, and I was kind of, as I said, this inner parliament. I was arguing with myself so harshly. I mean, I was like writing, "You're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? Stop doing that. Stop playing. Tomorrow, no more." And next day, I play
No.
again. No, I play again, and I write again. Are you like with like cursing? Like in Russian, it was, but it was, it was kind of uh, aesthetic, like language. My journals. I reached such a level of arguing with myself that
Wow.
it's like I
I
can't
really
control.
like that idea, man, of having like your personal cabinet, your personal parliament. That you have
Yeah,
these
sure.
discussions.
Listen, and 2017, my first note in English, it was exactly like, okay, I can control my, and I was playing for a few months before I shifted to English. I can control my, self-government. I shift the language. No, no more this language. I just change the inner government and start using English in this
Wow.
government. Yeah, and then for half a year, like a huge progress. For first half a
That's cool,
year,
man.
it's like it's uh it's like a 5 years old child. I mean, the same level of energy, enthusiasm, it's like playfulness, whatever. But then I got this noise after half a year, like daily study. And
Like it was a little bit of overdrive, a little bit too much,
well, it's like probably it was a lot too much.
a lot too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, I'm just trying to find the balance. And, you know, since for me, it's like 5 hours a day studying, it's almost nothing. So if I don't if I don't invest 5 hours in reading and watching lectures and writing, I feel very like it feels as if I didn't do anything at all during the day. There's some drive that I need to perform this. I know it sounds silly. I mean, I
No,
just
it actually, to me, it doesn't sound silly at all. I mean, it might sound silly to another person, but to me, it doesn't sound silly. To me, like I understand. Like I understand what you're saying, and I think it's fascinating. If anything, I think it's fascinating how you're telling me about this process of how you control your your desires. Like it's I don't think there are many people that I can talk to that will give me something like that, like a process of how they, control their design. Most people don't even think about it, like let alone go through a whole journey of trying to control their desires and being able to talk about it and explain a process. In fact, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start doing my own personal cabinet meetings. I'm gonna do
yeah.
that to see if we get a little bit less anarchy and more responsible
Yeah,
responsible
that makes
government. I
yeah.
need a
Yeah.
little bit more responsible government. So
Yeah, I started doing that like on purpose. I was studying law at university, and my theme of diploma was like I don't the state of law. Do you know this concept, the state of law? Like it's
oh yeah
basically
yeah 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 yeah
like German concept. And I was writing like diploma I read
Oh,
and
I know what you're talking about, but in English, I think it's called the rule of law. The rule of law.
probably, yeah, probably it's like in German, right,
I
rights.
think that would be the translation to that concept.
Okay, anyway, in Russian it's правовое государство. It's like государство is the state, правовое it's like right.
Hmm.
And I was writing a diploma on this topic, and like usually, how people write diploma or dissertation. So you go read books and
Yeah.
get some materials from the book, and basically 80% of your diploma is just links to somebody else's works. But I was
Yeah.
writing
So it's not your diploma. It would be the yeah, they call it the dissertation, I think,
dissertation,
in
yeah,
English
and
universities. Yeah.
yeah, and I was writing it in a different way. So I was basically doing self inquiry. I start, okay, I'm going to write a diploma. What the hell should I do? What the hell should I write about? And I start asking questions. Like, let's do the first thing, like which just comes across my mind. Let's read Plato's Republic. And I said, okay, I read Plato's Republic. This is my thoughts. Then I decided like to read some Thomas More Utopia, like what was going on there. And I basically was describing the process. So I was reading, but mostly I was talking about like my ideas and what I was doing. And so eventually I finished this diploma in a month. I brought it to my professor, and he said, like, it's very funny. You may you may publish it, but I'm not going to take it as a dissertation, since it's not it's like you can't write dissertation like that. So you always say I. You should speak like we, or
Yeah.
they.
Yeah. You
You
can't.
should you should
They hate it in universities. If you write I, they'll cross it.
Yeah, but he liked it, but he basically forced me to write a new
No, I mean
dissertation.
they might be amused by it, but they won't let you actually do it.
Yeah, yeah. And after that, I started thinking more deeply, like in this. No, there was a comparison in this.
I think the same thing happened to me. It was my degree in because my degree was in political science and philosophy. I think it was the
Hmm.
same. It was kind of a similar story for my dissertation that I gave her the dissertation and well, it wasn't finished, but it was partially kind of like yeah, I had like a bunch of notes and she was like, yeah, I mean this is cool, but we got to do something else. So
Yeah,
it was because I also tried to do sort of the same thing you did, and
yeah,
she's like, yeah,
like
let's do something else.
there's two ideas, like the state and the right, or the law. And basically in my dissertation I wrote that first I started studying the concept of state, and eventually I said there's no concept of state at all. Like it's all nonsense. no
Right.
no definition, nobody understands what it is. And then I did the same with the concept of law. It basically was kind of deconstruction. At that time I didn't know anything about Derrida and postmodernism, but it was kind of deconstruction of these concepts. But at the same time, I discovered something exciting about myself. So I realized that there was a comparison between the state and the person. And basically, the state is a kind of, you put a person in the soil, and the person grows into a state. So it's kind of like that. And what is the state? State, it's like a community. And what is the law? Law is something like language. And I was thinking, like, law is the reason. And I try to compare like how people may be organized around reason. So basically, they are there's some books. In these books, there's some rules, and people perform according to rules. And it's like nobody has power over everybody else, but the rules have the most power. But what is in a person? So if you think like if you want to follow the law, like what is the law? How it's like which kind of principles should you obey? Which kind of rules? And I basically was thinking like no rules, but just the reason. So the reason itself is like the rule. And yeah, and then basically I was arguing that reason. Well, it's now it sounds, again, I can't explain it better. It seems very superficial, but then it's like it was 50 pages, and it was so fascinating that eventually I could
Wow.
understand it, at least for myself.
No, that sounds fascinating. Um, that's something we can explore in a different conversation as well. I mean, that sounds pretty interesting to me because I did study law as well.
Mhm.
I just didn't finish it, but I studied as well. So yeah, well, I want to talk more about it with you. Do you? I think it's kind of like time to end this, Vladimir. But do you want to? Is there something that you really wanted to talk about that we can talk about for just 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Well,
Uh,
I think we may talk about the next conversation. Like try to figure out what's going to be interesting to discuss next time. Like for me, no,
okay.
I prepared for this conversation the whole list, and we just started on obedience. But I want to talk about creating the content since we're basically creating the content right
Yeah.
now, and I wanted to make it clear like how we can do it better. How we can improve the art of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how we can do it, how like some questions like how to make our dialogue attractive for a broad audience, like what exactly we should talk about, how we can, like, is it important the content or the form, some different questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Let's maybe not in this podcast because we should have that conversation maybe more in private. But
yeah, but we might do it like on a poll. Why not? I
yeah,
mean,
I mean, why not? I mean, there are no rules. Uh,
yeah.
but
Sure.
yeah, no. Well, maybe like yeah, we can talk about it in the next like 5 minutes, like if you and then we can continue the next time. But yeah. So what are you some of your what's one idea that you have to make things more interesting or something that you have
Well,
on
one of the things is, as I suggested on this week, to do some kind of reading together, to read some books and discuss something that we can understand. Or we may just, I think we read books which, we may just talk about books and find books which we read together and try to talk about them.
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's I would like
Like
to do that.
there are
Yeah.
lots of philosophical books which, I read basically, like, I published this list. Like,
Well, I think they're telling me that I need to finish because of the baby. We need to
yeah, okay,
change
okay.
her and
So
everything.
that,
But yeah, let's we'll resume that talk and we can talk about it on Facebook. But yeah, we need to have that conversation. In terms of
yeah, okay.
obedience, do you have any final thoughts in terms of obedience?
Well, I have a couple of essays I send you later,
Okay.
like, what I was writing.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And thanks for having this conversation, Vladimir. It was fun. Please
Yeah, thank
subscribe to
you.
the channel, and thank you.
Yeah.